I am 26-year-old and I met my wife in high school. She is 24-year-old. We were friends during the first few years, and I always had a crush on her. I asked her to prom during our senior year, and we've been together ever since. We ended up getting married about 6 months after graduation because she got pregnant. That's not to say that we didn't love each other. She was my best friend, the person who meant the most to me in the entire world. We just had to rush things along a little bit. We both come from a small conservative town, and people talk. We thought it was the best option for us. She has always been close with her family, closer than I was with mine. Sometimes I thought it was strange, but the more I was welcomed into it, I was a little jealous. Her family shared things, and everyone was genuinely happy to be around each other. Her mom had remarried shortly before we got together, so she had a new stepfather, stepbrother, and stepsister. We moved into our own apartment and started living our life. She got a job helping at the library in town, and I started working at my dad's construction company. Everything was going very well for us. Her mom helped with the baby a lot, and we enjoyed a simple life with good friends and a loving family. 4 years later, not much had changed, but my father told me he was retiring, and I would be in control of his construction company. With this promotion came a huge increase in pay. We were going to be able to buy a house and start saving up for college. I was ecstatic. However, the workload was surprisingly much more than I thought it would be. I was used to working 10-hour days, but with my new responsibilities, I was working 5 to 6 days a week and averaging about 70 total hours. I could feel the strain it was putting on my marriage, but I figured it was the best way to make sure our kids had everything they needed. Things went on like that for a while. All the while, when I was at work, she would be home or with her family. I didn't expect anything was going on. Even having suspicions about it seemed wrong, but here I am writing this post. During the spring and summer, work always gets incredibly busy, so I'm around at home less and less. Recently, I noticed that my wife's stepbrother was coming around more often to hang out while I was out. It seemed perfectly normal. He was with his stepsister and nephew. I had no reason to suspect anything else was happening. He called her and texted her, and they would chat on Snapchat all the time, things that I interpreted as normal activity. One night, I was off work, and my wife and I were alone watching a movie. I ran to the kitchen to get us some popcorn and saw her phone on the table. I didn't immediately decide that I was going to go through it. I picked it up, planning on just bringing it to her because she left it there. When I hovered over the screen, I saw that she had a message from her stepbrother asking her to think of an excuse to go to his house. I thought it was weird. My mind didn't immediately go to the reality of what was happening. While the popcorn was still in the microwave, I did a quick look to see what the context of the message was. They were both exchanging suggestive messages about wanting to be together again. He even said how he'd had a thing for her since before their parents got married. My wife agreed and said that it was unfortunate they never had a chance to explore what they had. I scrolled further back and saw messages and videos they'd shared with each other. I felt sick to my stomach. I actually thought I might collapse on the ground and vomit. No, they're not blood related, but they're still family, and it was disgusting to me. On top of that, she'd been hanging out with him in her home with our child. My mind ran through countless different scenarios of what could have happened. Right away, I confronted my wife. We had a huge blowout argument which resulted in her storming out, no doubt going to her stepbrother. I began looking into divorce the following morning. I considered my options about what to say to her family, too. She came back late the next day, and we had a discussion. I was still very angry. Our child was home and awake, so I didn't want to upset him. She begged me not to tell anyone about it, saying it would destroy her family. She tried to convince me it was a momentary lapse in judgment, but I wouldn't listen. I told her I wouldn't tell her family, but I knew that was a lie. She betrayed my trust, so I was going to get back at her. A few months had passed, and she and I ended everything. I moved out, and we were still in the midst of figuring out custody. I had no idea what she was telling her family about our separation, but I told mine the truth. I picked my son up from her house, and he told me all about a huge family barbecue they were having the following weekend. It was the perfect time for me to come clean. Nobody had any idea I would even be going to the event. I just showed up uninvited. Everyone was curious about why I was there. I definitely didn't feel welcome, so I figured I'd make my point and then leave. I joined a group of people at a table, including her mom, stepdad, and stepbrother, and I told them everything I knew. Her stepbrother looked like he wanted to leap over the table and strangle me, but instead, he denied my claims and called me a liar. I think everyone around us knew that his impassioned denial was too defensive to not be at least a little bit true. Her mom pulled me aside and asked me how I knew. I could tell it broke her heart, and I felt bad about being the one to tell her, but she needed to know. I ended up leaving the barbecue with my son for the rest of the weekend. Apparently, neither of them is welcome at any other family gatherings, and most of her family thinks they're disgusting for what they did.